And this is what I'm telling you guys. If I can go from there to being faculty at Harvard fucking medical school, you can too. Let me go to the next question. Let's talk about Dharma for a second. Then we'll do meditation. Hey, Dr. K, I know that you advocate for finding your calling Dharma in life, but I feel like I'm having a hard time pinning that down. My question is, what kinds of specific things can be done to find that calling? And is it or can it be related to finding financial success? Yes. So let's talk about finding your Dharma. So the first thing that I want you to do is take a piece of paper. I've given out this exercise before. And if you haven't done it and you've heard it before, we got to understand why you can't do this. And write a page about what you think is wrong with the world. Just write a page about what you think is wrong with the world. And then like all kinds of thoughts are going to pop into your head. Like, oh, like the list will be never ending. Like, oh, I could write about this, or I could write about this, or I could write about this. That's why you need to sit down and actually write a page about the world, or what's wrong with the world. Because when you sit down and you actually write a page, then you'll see what comes out. And then this is really important. So we have two modes of thinking. We have our creative mind and we have our analytical mind. And so one of the biggest struggles if you're a writer is that like when you sit down and write, you sort of edit what you're writing all the time. And that can make it hard to write. Like the sentence doesn't feel right. And so one of the biggest things that writers need to learn how to do is shut off their editor. So you have like an author and you have like an artist and you have an editor in your head. And in learning how to write, what you've got to do is like separate the artist from the editor. And what gamers do is they confuse, they're always in editor mode because their analytical mind is really strong. And so they never get to exercise their creative mind, which is why you all end up on Twitch, because y'all are really good at analyzing and commenting and really bad at doing. And why is that? It's because your author, your creative mind, your artistic mind has become dead. Because video games don't train that mind at all. They just train your analytical mind. Because video games don't need you to create anything. Video games are all about analysis and like following the script that you're given. It's all about responding to external things. It's nothing internal. So what you guys need to do is like recognize that you have this creative part and you have an analytical part. And right now it's almost like, it's like, gonna create some weird images, but like imagine you just worked out like one arm. Like you just did like curls with one arm and you got that arm swole and then the other arm you never worked out. That's what your brain is like if you're a gamer. Your analytical mind is way overblown and your creative mind, like your creative mind is like weak. So it's like, people who skip leg day, but like, it's just like one part of your mind is just really weak. So when you sit down to write, you're starting to like increase the strength of your creative mind to actually like have a thought and put something out in the world. So if I had to diagnose your problem as a gamer, the problem is that you have lots of thoughts and they never produce anything. You can think, but you can't produce. So what we need to do is just literally practice the skill of producing. Practice the skill of producing. It doesn't matter what it is. Just start working out that arm. So write one page. Generate. Absolutely. Just generate something. The only thing you guys are good at generating is semen and shit. That's all you guys can produce. Produce something. Doesn't matter. Create something. Write a page. That's what you should do. Just write something. And in the realm, so this is fascinating because even like in yogic texts, there's this idea that there are two things in life that require manifestation. You need energy and intention. So this is like Shiva is the principle of like consciousness or intention. And Shakti is Shiva's consort. So there's like a male god and his wife is the female god. And Shakti means energy. And so if you want to accomplish anything in this world, you need to combine intention with energy. And the way that I view that is the analytical mind and the creative mind. And you guys all have a really good analytical mind. You have a very good Shiva, but your Shakti is very weak. Your energy is very weak. The interesting thing is that in the Hindu tradition, Shiva is male and Shakti is female. So I see this problem more with men than women. And so start by just writing a page about what's wrong with the world. And if you haven't done it yet, so like show of hands, like who's actually done this? Right? And so if you just think about that for a second, if you've heard this exercise, or even by the end of tomorrow, if you haven't actually written, like ask yourself why. What gets in the way of you actually just writing one page and like writing what's wrong with the world? And so then we get to the second part, which is like after you write one page, then turn on your analytical mind and sift through it and be your own therapist and ask yourself, okay, out of this, so the second part of the question was about financial stuff. Like, can you be financially successful through your dharma? Absolutely. Because I believe that generally speaking, like what matters to you is probably going to matter to someone else out there. And generally speaking, money is correlated with value. Like, sure, there are lots of problems with like this general premise, but generally speaking, I think people are willing to pay for stuff that's like worth something. And so if you see a problem and you go about trying to correct it, chances are you'll generate value. So if we think about something like Axiom Verge, if you guys haven't checked out the game, you check out, I'm not getting paid or anything, but like Axiom Verge is a great game because the guy was like, I want to play like a Metroid game. Like I want to play like a Metroid game. And so he like made a bunch of guns and he made a bunch of cool level designs. And then it was just like making the game that you want to play. And if we think about successful authors, like successful authors write the book that they want to read because they say like, okay, there's no book on the market that scratches my itch for this kind of thing. Like this, I think it would be really cool if there was like, you know, a book about this. And yeah, so Ramenberg just had an interesting thought. Imagine if all of us here on chat does this writing assignment and go beyond it and write a book called What's Wrong with the World? So 113 of these books all called the same but written by different authors. That's a brilliant idea. So I think what you guys should do is write a page and then let's coalesce it and publish it as an ebook. And let's see what happens. Like you guys do it. Each of you write a page. There are 113 viewers and then we're going to make a book, right? We're going to actually do it. Like, you fuckers, no excuses, but y'all are going to come up with it. It's going to fail. It's going to fail. It's going to fucking fail. 113 pages. Twitch writes a book, right? It's like Twitch plays Pokemon, but Twitch writes a book. Let's do it. That sounds like a brilliant idea. And I'll write a page too. I'll put my money where my mouth is. Dr. Jabri asks single space or double. Who the fuck cares if it's single space or double space? See, that's the kind of bullshit that I'm talking about. You guys will come up with any kind of... He asks single space or double space. Like, who cares? Does it matter what the font is or whether it's single space or double space? Your mind will come up with anything it can to not create. Any reason you want. Anything. It'll come up with all kinds of reasons to not actually create something. Anything you can to not get someone pregnant and just jerk off. That's all you guys want. And so, like, fuck all of that. So we got to figure out how to do this. But I want you guys to write. And, like, we're going to see what we can put together. And we're going to, like, submit it somewhere. And then... like, we're going to submit it to somewhere and we'll, like, post it on our website. And then you guys can read what, like, other people have written. So we've done this on the past on our Discord, where we do this exercise with, like, groups of gamers. And like, people will, like, post their submissions. And then it's been really helpful for everyone else. So if you guys want to write a book together, let's do it. Right? Yeah, so write a page about what's wrong with the world. And then, and can it be related to financial success? Absolutely, right? So this is how Twitch is going to make money. Like, we're going to make some money. Like, let's see if we can sell it. Like, let's see if the book is decent. If it's a piece of shit, fine. No problem. If it fails, no big deal. At least we learned something, right? At least we did something. Because even if you write a really crappy book, like, it'd be cool, right? You don't even need failure. You don't need success. The book can suck. But you're going to feel amazing about yourself. And that's the key. Because remember, Everywhere that we started from is you don't feel like you deserve to succeed. You feel like you're a piece of shit, and that's what's holding you back. So how do we fix that problem? We write the shittiest book in the history of humanity. And somehow that's going to make you feel good. Just think about that. This whole stream has been about overcoming failure. How about trying something that you know is going to be a piece of shit and feeling good at the end of it? Like, if you can do that, you could turn your fucking life around. Done. It doesn't even have to succeed. It doesn't have to be successful. It doesn't have to make you rich. You're going to produce the biggest turd of authorship in the universe, and you're going to feel good about it. And then you're going to wake up the next day, and you know what's crazy? You know what's really crazy? You're going to go to class. You're going to go to class. That's going to happen. Yeah, so we got to figure out. So I don't know if Kanga's still around. Kanga, how can these guys submit something? We got to figure that out. Okay. So let's talk about Dharma for a second. So here's a great question. Yeah, Google Doc would be fine. So Dank Moses is going to help us figure out how to do this. Okay. So, hello, over the past couple of months, I've been struggling with what my dharma is. My dream in life was to become a professional esports player, yet I have come to the realization that I'm not good enough to be one. This has pushed me to becoming more involved with school. However, I'm not passionate about it whatsoever. Just wondering if there are any tips I could get to move on with my life. So this question comes from Engine. So I'm not quite sure what you mean by being involved with school, but so let's just talk about shattered dreams for a second. So I think this question is about shattered dreams, right? Over the past couple of months, I've been struggling with what my dharma is. My dream in life was to become a professional esports player, yet I have come to the realization that I'm not good enough to be one. Perfect. Right? So we can start there. This is what we've been talking about. In the roguelike, you are thinking oh, I want to be a mage and I want to find a fireball spell because I want to be a fire mage. But you roll up your roguelike and there are no fire spells to be found. So then you're like, well, shit. What can I do? So I wanted to be an esports pro too. It blows my mind. I work with a couple of people who had the opportunity to become esports pros. And they turned it down to fucking go to medical school. And you know who you are. And then when they tell me that, a couple of people now, and when they tell me that, I'm like, you're crazy. Why not pick esports? Because that's what I wanted. But I just wasn't good enough. I played so much War 3 and I was in top 100 on the ladder in North America, which is nothing, right? Top 100 is sort of an achievement, but if we really think about it, that's just not, I was number 87 or something on the NA ladder. So I was good at War 3, but 87th isn't going to get you anywhere in the esports world. So, I think that's fine. So that's not your karma in this life. Right? So just accept that for a moment and be okay, I wanted this thing. And now this is really important because we learned with Helen, sometimes we don't let ourselves want what we cannot have. And then the subtle thing is that want lives in our subconscious and weighs us down. So instead, what you really need to do is actually grieve. You need to grieve for the loss. So what you need to do is be honest with yourself and say, hey, I really wanted this, but I've lost it. This is gone and this is not going to be a part of my life. Because grief is the appropriate place, is the appropriate way to move on from something that you no longer have. Right? So Engine needs to grieve his potential esports career. It's I don't mean to be insensitive about this, but it's almost like a miscarriage. The appropriate way to deal with a miscarriage is grief. Because there was this potential, right? There was this whole other life or track or avenue of joy and hope and love. And there was this whole career. There was this whole trajectory in life. And it's gone. It's never going to be. And so you need to grieve. Right? And like, how do you grieve for a miscarriage? Like, you just, first of all, acknowledge that you're entitled to feel bad for not having it, that it's sad that it happened, and also, like, that it doesn't mean that your life is over. And when I help people work through miscarriages, which happens a lot, like, so like, I think half of women have a miscarriage, like, the number is absurdly high. So, like, how do you deal with something? Like, you just say, like, yeah, it's shitty, like, that sucks. Like, let's be honest about that. And you're sad, and you're allowed to be sad. And let's not, like, delude ourselves about how bad it is. And also, let's not delude ourselves about, like, the limits of its badness. Because just because you had one miscarriage doesn't mean that you're ever able to have children. And I've worked with people like that, too, who've had miscarriage after miscarriage after miscarriage. And that, too, like, you've got to grieve, right? You've got to grieve for the life of never being able to have your own child. But that doesn't mean that life is over either. Because some of those people end up adopting. Some of those people, we talked about surprises, right? And most of Twitch chat is a surprise. Some of those people end up having surprises later in life. Because they stop using birth control. And then, like, the human body and reproductive organs are weird. And when you stop getting stressed out, then you're able to have babies. And, like, sometimes, like, at the age of 38, you get pregnant. You're like, well, fuck. Like, where did this come from? And it's all part of life. It's all part of your roguelike. Right? It's all part of your roguelike. You just don't know. You wanted that fireball spell, and you've gotten through 6 levels of the dungeon, and there's no fireball spell. And you've decided that you're just going to pump up your, like, barbarian stats. And so you're double-wielding 2-handed axes. You've got a bunch of strength and con. And on level 7, you find your fireball spell. And you're like, that's amazing. Right? Like, that's what you've got to do. You've got to grieve that you're not going to be an esports professional. But that's okay. Because esports is such an evolving industry where most of the people now in esports don't play the game. Think about that for a second. You have teams, right? And teams have players, but they also have coaches. They have managers. They have advertising people. They have PR people. They have, like, financial people. They have CEOs. They have CFOs. They have all kinds. They have chefs. They have psychologists. So you can still get involved in esports. Like, that's just your dharma. So if you want to get involved in esports, get involved in esports. And now we come to our second, don't write a page about this, but for that person, what's missing in esports? That's the page you need to write. What's missing in esports? And then so let your creative mind do that. Then what you need to do is, like, think about what your skill sets are and what your strengths are and what can you do about it, right? That's the second page.